Hello and welcome. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Ted Hulsy. I'm Vice President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's webinar event. Welcome to our eFolder Partner Chat series. This webinar series brings together leading eFolder partners for business-oriented discussions. Today's topic is ransomware to recovery, how one partner saved his clients with FileSync. Today we are joined by Marty Calvert, Senior Solutions Engineer at Walser Technology Group. Before we go through today's agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar, along with the slides, will be made available to those who registered for the event. With over 170 people registered for today's session, we've put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Your questions are strongly encouraged throughout today's discussion. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit your questions as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. Let's look at the agenda. In a moment, I'm going to further introduce Marty, and then I'm going to talk just a little bit about what we're seeing happen in the ransomware market. There's some interesting statistics in terms of how this market's evolving and how this challenge continues to grow in the SMB market. I'll make sure that everybody on the call today understands what eFolder Anchor is. I won't spend a ton of time there because I really want to get into the conversation with Marty to learn how they are using Anchor for a number of different use cases in their business. And we have a special Q&A section at the end. But I really want to encourage you. I've got the Q&A log here open, and I really want to encourage you to submit your questions as we go along, because that keeps today's discussion as interactive as possible. So let's introduce Marty. So Marty Calvert is Senior Solutions Engineer at Walser Technology Group. Marty, welcome to today's call.
Hey, thank you, Ted. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about Walser. Where are you guys based? What are you focused on? How long have you been in business? That sort of thing.
All right. The Walser Technology Group was started about 13 years ago here in Salisbury. We started off pretty much as a break-fix shop with our owner and our first technician. We've grown over the years, just nice, slow, steady growth to having about 8 full-time technicians here in Salisbury. And we have 2 full-time technicians that are staffed at different clients in the Charlotte area. And our focus really is small and medium-sized businesses in our geographic region. So Salisbury, Rowan County, Kannapolis, Concord, Charlotte. We don't really get too much outside of those boundaries. But so about 8 years ago, we started getting into doing the services and what we would consider a managed service provider style of business. We built a new office. Actually, we remodeled an old 1800s building downtown Salisbury. We have office space here. We have a on-site data center, and we also have a secondary facility here in town where we also have data center space. And really to try kind of sum up what we do in 5 words. It's cloud, integration, support, voice, and hardware. So we cover pretty much anything that a small business would need within that realm. We're partners with Dell, SonicWall, Barracuda, obviously eFolder, Microsoft. Use products from all of these different organizations to build solutions and offer services to our clients.
Is there a sweet spot in terms of client size, or are there any verticals that you specialize in?
It's really varied. Clients as small as CPAs that have 2 or 3 people, running a small business, all the way up to manufacturing organizations with 100+ employees, and many different verticals. We have medical clients. We have, again, I said CPAs. We have lawyers, manufacturing, graphics design. There's all kinds of different small businesses and organizations here around Salisbury that we support.
Okay, and what would you say kind of is the biggest challenge clients are facing today? just if you could kind of like take it up one level, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing your clients face today?
Definitely security. Ransomware is becoming a much more prevalent, so we do deal with that a lot. And also having services that let them get their job done without costing too much money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so security and kind of productivity, but productivity inside of budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, great introduction to your firm. Really anxious to get into the meat of today's conversation and talk about how you guys are using Anchor. What I promised everybody is we'd just spend a couple minutes looking at, what we're seeing happen with with ransomware in the market. And just to kind of tee things off, this is from a recent threat report from Symantec, but let me just read this quote. A number of ransomware groups have begun using advanced attack techniques displaying a level of expertise similar to that seen in many cyber espionage attacks. And so I think really today the reality is with ransomware is that it's big business. It's organized crime to a large degree, and because the dollar's at stake, the number of potential victims and the amount of money that can be skimmed from these tactics by criminal organizations spread all over the world is so massive that it's really an organized crime phenomenon. And the level of sophistication that these organizations are showing makes it so that this is a #1 priority for the managed services industry and a top priority, and a thing that you have to kind of have multiple layers of defense, multiple layers of remediation and recovery, multiple ways to mitigate the sophistication of these attacks. And the interesting thing is that the ransomware market, really, if you dial the clock back, 5 to 7 years ago, it started out as kind of a consumer technique, but really the reality is, the dollars are in the business market. It's businesses that have mission-critical content, work product, mission-critical business data, where the business owner simply can't afford, not to ransom that data back if they don't have the levels of data protection in place to get their data back if they suffer a crypto locker, ransomware type attack. So the attacks have really shifted to the SMB market, and really just if you look at the data of late, the SMB market is where the bulk of these attacks are coming. Like I said just a moment ago, I think it's because one explanation, of course, is that's where the money is. But I also think that it's kind of a combination of that's where the money is and that's maybe where the attack surface is most vulnerable. Because SMBs, we all know, as we just mentioned a moment ago, budgets sometimes lead small businesses to make very poor decisions about the level of their security and kind of data protection and business continuity posture. Every day I talk to MSPs, and there's a struggle to get a lot of clients to invest in the right level of security defense, multiple layers of security, and of course having the right backup and BDR capabilities in place. So I think that's kind of the explanation of why this market's shaped up like this. The point of this slide is, no vertical is immune. A huge portion of the SMB market is made up of kind of professional services, folks like CPAs, lawyers, tax accountants, all sorts of things. In the service sector, there's a lot of them. They're usually small organizations. They usually don't necessarily understand why we need to invest in all this sophisticated IT infrastructure and software to protect their organizations. But you see that no vertical is really immune to these attacks. So in our view, MSPs, it's your job to, take business, your opportunity is to leverage services like business-grade file sync to not only improve the productivity of your clients, but to ensure business continuity and privacy and recovery capabilities for their data. So you want to, focus on all of these aspects, and MSPs, you really have to have a passion around protecting every aspect of the productivity and uptime and data of your clients. So we believe that Anchor is one piece of the puzzle. If you're not familiar with how Anchor works, it's a business-grade file sync and collaboration and backup solution that is really built from the ground up for managed service providers. It gives you the ability in a multi-tenant fashion to deploy file sync solutions to your clients. What the user gets out of it, of course, is they get the productivity of having access to their content across numerous different PCs, across the file server, across their mobile devices. It gives them the ability to seamlessly share content and work product with outside third parties or guest users. It allows employees to collaborate with their colleagues in a nimble and agile sort of way and to really be able to compute in a hybrid cloud fashion. And we really designed Anchor from the ground up for MSPs. It has deep integration with ConnectWise and AutoTask. Common tools for authentication are integrated with the product. The product is HIPAA compliant. We give partners the ability to license the product on a SaaS basis where the data is stored in eFolder's cloud environment, or you can license just the software and run your own private cloud installations. From a go-to-market strategy, we allow partners to brand the solution, put your own name on it, make it fully customizable and your own, really hide eFolder in the background, if you will, price and package it how you want on your own, and really to leverage the multi-tenant architecture to deploy this to every single one of your clients and to really to leverage the benefits of multi-tenancy, right? The benefits there is hierarchical policy management, group policy management, really being able to, in an agile fashion, meet all the unique needs of all your various clients and to not just throw labor at the problem. You want a solution that scales with you as you grow and allows you in a very cost-effective manner to deploy this service to every single one of your clients. We're going to talk with Marty in a moment here about how the ransomware defense and rollback capabilities in Anchor are really a really hot commodity right now with our partners because of the number of ransomware incidents that our partners are running into. But basically there is a rollback feature that can allow you either on a server or workstation to roll back all of the synced content that may have been compromised in an encryption attack to a known good state, and to do it in a very agile and effective way where you can have your clients back up and running in a very short matter of time. It's not often, a lot of partners don't know about this, but Anchor has a full-blown, file level backup capability, which allows you to, it's an extra layer of functionality. So file sync is really about productivity, backup's more about data protection and business continuity. But you can also, on any machine where Anchor is deployed, also back up data, whether it's on the desktop or in the My Documents folder, any sort of content that might reside on a user's machine that may not be in the sync folder that you want to protect on a file and folder level basis. So just another screenshot there. And then another just important capability, which we're not going to really dive into a ton here, but it's really one of the killer apps of Anchor, is file server enablement. One of the biggest challenges with file servers today is that while they're very good for the office staff that is on the local area network where the file server resides, more and more today companies are distributed. You've got a lot of remote employees that are working from home offices or on the road, or you have contractors who may be contributing to an organization. And the problem with the distributed organization is you have a lot of problems with data sprawl, critical work product being stranded or siloed on remote workstations or laptops, breakdowns in collaboration because all of the content isn't ending up in the same canonical file server and folder structure. And a lot of the solutions today, like VPNs, are just not really effective at, they can work, but they're very hard to manage, hard to support, hard for users to navigate, and they result in a lot of challenges. And file server enablement allows you to logically connect a file server to the Anchor service, map folders on the file server to team shares in the Anchor service, and then really make it so that users can have full access to the file server from their remote machines or from their mobile devices, and then in turn also contribute and sync and share and make sure that their content is synced to the file server, so that that file server is always the canonical place where all of the work product resides, so that everybody's on the same page. So let's change gears, Marty, and talk a bit about your experience. Talk a little bit about what you guys were doing for, backup before you started leveraging Anchor, and talk a little bit about that experience.
All right. So before we became an Anchor partner, we had two primary backup solutions. One of them was Aperture for image level backups, which we do still have. But we also use a product called NovaStore, which was more for our smaller businesses. Aperture is a nice product, but it carries kind of a premium price. And a lot of our market, being those 2, 3, 4-man shops, they just don't have the budget for that type of software, and sometimes they honestly don't even need it. So NovaStore was a software that we used for several years to back up their data, and we just had lots of challenges with it being reliable. It took a lot of babysitting to keep all the backup jobs running. They had no console really that could manage everything from a single pane of glass. So it started to add up to a lot of man hours every week just to keep backups running, just to make sure that client data was protected. And then in some cases, even when everything looked great and you had all green lights, sometimes you would go to restore data and it wasn't there. So we started having some big concerns just about being able to restore client data, and we had to find a different solution. So about 2 years ago, we became Anchor partners, and it's been a whole different story ever since.
Okay, and when you guys initially adopted Anchor, what was kind of the, was it the need for a file level backup solution, or were you more attracted to the file sync capabilities? Talk a little bit about your original look at the product and what sold you early on.
So we had a client here in town that's a financial planner that wanted to have a complete cloud office. He didn't want to have any infrastructure in his office anymore. And he came talking to us about it. So he had actually heard about Anchor from one of his peers at a convention. So we started doing some research on Anchor, and we found that the features were there. We really liked being in the file server enablement, being able to do the backups with it, and we also liked that it was geared towards managed service providers and that we could put it into a private cloud environment. Because one thing that's kind of unique about us is all of the services that we offer, we host all of those in our data center on our equipment, our servers, and we support it. So we don't use any public cloud. So the Anchor product having that private cloud feature really fit well into our wheelhouse of what we were already doing.
And talk a little bit about your private cloud strategy. So why do you do it that way? What are the kind of the key drivers? Why is that your kind of preferred deployment scenario?
It's really kind of boils down to our community. A lot of the Salisbury, Rowan County, very small community. And all of the business owners know each other. You rarely walk out in public and see somebody that you don't know. Everybody goes to all the different events together, so it's a really close-knit community. And private cloud is good for us because we can take our clients into our data center and say, here's where your data sits. Here's the the controls we have in place to secure it, and all of those types of things. And it just gives them a bit of a comfort factor because they know us, they know our names, our faces, they know our kids' names. Kids go to school together. And they have a big comfort factor with that, just knowing that we're taking care of their data. We've got it here. It's not off in a big public cloud.
Do you showcase your own private data center as a part of your kind of sales process when you're trying to entice a new client to join up with you? Is that part of the sales process?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So we have, 2 different locations here in town. We've got several different internet connections, full BGP peering between them, a lot of redundancy and security built into our infrastructure. And one part of that, or part of the sales process, being that we sell to a lot of small businesses, they can't afford to build that kind of infrastructure, but they want that kind of reliability and uptime. So it's usually an easy sell to get people into cloud services in our data center because we can provide that for them without them having to have the expense that's involved with it.
Okay, well, great. And then talk a little bit about how your use of Anchor has kind of evolved over time.
So when we first signed up with Anchor, we primarily used it as a file server replacement. A lot of our clients had aging file servers that were out of warranty, still some 2003 servers out there that we were trying to get replaced. So a lot of the smaller companies with the smaller data sets, it was just a really natural fit for them. And sorry, getting a little lost here on my notes.
Well, I mean, tell me a little bit about, like, so moving, eliminating file servers, using file server enablement maybe as a way, as an on-ramp to the cloud is kind of like one common deployment we've seen. And then talk a little bit about, I mean, how do clients react to the ability to, really have access to all their files on their mobile devices, or to be able to access their files from different computers? I mean, how is that unfolded as kind of a benefit to the users?
Well, everybody likes to have the ability to work from home now, so that's something that's been a good plus with Anchor. It's very easy to get the data out to people no matter where they're at. You kind of mentioned earlier, VPNs being unreliable. That was something that we spent a lot of time troubleshooting. Hey, my VPN doesn't work. I can't get to my map drives. I can't do this. I can't do that. Moving clients into Anchor and having those files sync directly on their machines has eliminated a lot of that, especially for small companies. And having all of their data accessible on mobile devices is also helpful. A lot of our companies use it. We used to compare Anchor to Dropbox in some ways. I don't really do that anymore because Anchor's a whole different animal than Dropbox. But that kind of feature of having the Dropbox, I can send you files really easily, is something that clients really like.
So there's a question from Jerry in the Q&A log here, and he says how does Anchor differ from Dropbox? So maybe could you elaborate? When you said it's an entirely different animal, what do you mean by that?
So with Anchor, you've got one control panel where we can see all of our organizations. We can see all of their users, how much data they're using. We can control all their different file shares and permissions right from one single pane of glass. And with the file server enablement and the backup features, it's really handy because if you have customers that, we have some more medium-sized customers that still have a file server on site for their desktops, but they have a lot of salespeople out in the field. So with the file server enablement, we can maintain that file server on site, but then also get that same data out into the hands of their remote workers. And again, going back to all of that's going through our private cloud, and that data is not sitting out in a public cloud, and that's something that you just can't get out of Dropbox.
Right. So I guess, maybe if I could just elaborate a little bit, there's a functional overlap because end user functions like syncing data between your workstations or your laptops and your mobile devices is something that both Anchor and Dropbox do. The ability to share large files with third parties, but I think as Marty just kind of clarified, that's really where the comparison stops, and Anchor just takes it to a whole nother level. It's a solution that's built for managed service providers to handle a whole different range of kind of data management that you're going to come across in the business market. And really, I mean, there is a business-grade version of Dropbox, but in my view, they're really a consumer company that has a really good consumer product that's really ideal for things like sharing photos and that sort of thing, which does educate users on how you can deal with data in different ways. But really, if you're talking about as an MSP building a foundational data management product where you're helping clients migrate to the cloud, run their files in the cloud, securely share and control their corporate data, and to do it all in an MSP fashion with your own branding and logo on it, Anchor is just a completely different kind of solution than Dropbox. But let's kind of change gears and talk about ransomware. You know, you've actually had some experiences where you had ransomware get through to your clients, and how did Anchor help you in those scenarios?
So we've had several occurrences of ransomware over the past 2 years, and the worst case scenario one was having a client who declined any backup service from us whatsoever and getting all of their files encrypted. And that's a tough thing to go to a customer and tell them that, well, sorry, you didn't get backups with us. You know, you've got to pay that ransom or we can't get your data back. So I've been in those scenarios and worked through those. Not very much fun. But you survive them and you move on and educate the client backups from you. But definitely the best case scenarios, and we had one just 2 weeks ago where a customer had several hundred gigs of data get encrypted on their machine, and that syncs up to the Anchor server. So the nice thing is all we had to do is go into our portal, pull up that customer and go to the team chair, hit rollback, go back to a point in time before it happened. All of our data is back, syncs back down to their machines, and they're off to the races like nothing ever happened. It's really kind of that simple.
Well, let's talk about. I mean, in the situation where your client kind of declined backup services. You know, why did they? I mean, how do you guys price and package your MSP solution, and where are the challenging parts in terms of? I mean, I'm guessing my guess is probably budget related, but it was probably a very short-sighted decision on their part.
Yeah, I think so. Some of it is budget. You know, we kind of price things based on how much data a customer has and what type of data they're backing up, how many users they have, things like that. But I think, and this kind of leads on to a question that you have later, I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I think some of it too is our mentality on educating our clients has changed a bit, especially with ransomware coming around. In years past, it's like, okay, if you didn't really want to get a backup from us, that's okay. We'll still do business with you and service you. But knowing how easily ransomware can cripple a business really kind of changed our mindset, and we really, really push backup solutions when we talk to customers now for reasons like this, so that we don't have to go back and have those tough conversations with them.
Right, and talk a little bit about, I think when we were preparing for today's webinar, you mentioned that you kind of have a tiered backup strategy, you know, where kind of there's no one-size-fits-all solution, but you have kind of different kinds of solutions for different levels of client sophistication and budget. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right, so Anchor is really good for backing up flat files, anything that's Microsoft Office related, PDFs, anything that's not a database file. So we kind of call it our entry-level backup, but that doesn't mean that it's not as good as our other backups. Any client that has several laptops out in the field, anything not database related, we pretty much automatically put them into the Anchor category for backups and price that out for them because it's easy. We have easy ways to manage it, and it's easy for us to show the clients how to go do their own restores by giving them access to their accounts in the Anchor panel. Mm-hmm. So Anchor kind of our first tier. Our second tier, we've actually recently become a partner using the eFolder backup for files, which can also do all the flat files, but also get into doing databases. I actually have one or two customers where I use a little bit of both. They have lots of laptops out in the field, a lot of flat file data on a file server. Anchor is a good way to back it up and get those easy restores. And then on other servers where they have more database-driven applications, I can leverage that eFolder backup software to back up those applications. So sometimes we mix it up a little bit. It's really all custom based on what the customer's need is. Because every customer is different, and that's why we have different solutions. So we just figure out, which box or boxes the customers fit in best, and then tailor our solution to that.
And then you mentioned Aperture. Where does kind of image-based backup and kind of your Aperture fit into that whole tiered strategy?
Yeah, so Aperture, we deploy in heavily virtualized environments. So some of our larger customers do have a decent bit of in-house infrastructure, hosting their own Exchange. A lot of it's anything that has a lot of virtualization going on. So the image level backup that Aperture provides is really good because we can get really quick recoveries of a whole virtual machine. So on larger clients, we will tie that in and steer them that direction. And depending on, again, if what their need is, if Anchor still fits a need within that organization, then sometimes we'll bundle that in as well. But most of our, a lot of our clients being smaller, not having a huge server infrastructure, then Aperture is just not a good fit for them.
Okay, great. And then there's a kind of a technical question from Carlos in the chat log. He was, I think, going back to some of the examples of where you've used Anchor with ransomware. So his question is, when a client gets hit by ransomware, to fix them, does one have to just restore the data, or should they have to reload the whole OS on the affected system and then restore the data?
That's going to depend case by case. Most of the time we've been able to go in and clean whatever infection caused that to begin with, and an OS rebuild isn't required. I can probably think of one or two times where we did it as a precaution, but generally just going in and restoring the data is sufficient to get you back on the road.
Okay, and can you talk a little bit about how long it takes? I mean, like, literally, between the time a client, it's either you discover it or the client alerts you to an infection to having their data back. I mean, how much downtime would that involve?
Our most recent case about 2 weeks ago, once we were notified about it, about 11 o'clock in the morning, we determined that the infection and encryption started around 10 o'clock in the morning. And before the end of business day rolled around, we had the files restored. We did have to log a case with Anchor support and get a little bit of assistance with some files that had been renamed and restoring some file names. But the support guys had already been there. They had seen the issue. They had a process for it. So we really had everything resolved and back up and going within the same day. And that particular encryption event, I believe it was about 60 gigs worth of data. So the actual rollback process, was a matter of maybe 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Well, great. And then I think Carlos had a follow-up question. I just want to remind everybody, right now is a really good time to load up your questions, so we maximize, Marty's input. But he just wants to confirm, Carlos says, does Anchor not back up database files?
That's correct. So, database files, due to the amount of changes in the way that Anchor does revisions, the guidance that we were given when we became partners is that you really don't want to try to back up databases files, and Anchor, does not handle open file database type scenarios.
That's right. And so, just if you have a need for, open file backup, then eFolder backup is a really good and affordable choice there, where you also get the benefits of scheduling and alerting and monitoring. And again, it's multi-tenant, like everything eFolder does. Anyway, so that's a good alternative. And then, I think something that you guys aren't doing, but eFolder in the BDR arena, I think you guys are probably replicating your Aperture data to your own colo, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and just so it's everybody's aware, when you're thinking about, security, it's defense in depth. It's about layers of security, but also your backup strategy we learned today. Your backup and recovery strategy can have layers, and for image-based backups, whether you're using Aperture, Acronis, Shadow Protect from StorageCraft, Veeam, or Replibit, any one of those image-based backup solutions, you can back those up to the eFolder cloud as an alternative strategy, and then do cloud-based, backup and recovery in our cloud environment. And so we're pretty unique in the market, where when you're talking about clients that have a more sophisticated server infrastructure where you want to use image-based backup, eFolder is unique in the market in the fact that we support 5 different flavors of software to allow you to back those up to our cloud for kind of the utmost level of protection for your clients. So, so Gloria wants to know, Marty, can you give us an idea of how you build a client for Anchor for Workstation backup? How do you price and package the solution?
So one of our customers has probably about 15 employees that are spread across the country. Each of them work on laptops, and we back up their data through Anchor. So what we do is take a look at how many users they have, how much data they have, and then we kind of have some little formulas internally that we determine based on those two factors what our price will be for their backups.
Yeah, and Marty, if you don't want to go into the specifics on pricing and packaging because confidentiality, that's okay too.
Yeah, well, I don't see the invoices and the billing as much, so
okay.
I wouldn't be able to pull that up from memory anyway. So sorry about that.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So other questions. Tell me a little bit, Marty. I mean, just tell me what is your kind of security stack that you guys are using today, so we have a kind of a good sense of that.
Just from an overall, here's this how we would present
I mean,
security to a client.
Well, no, I mean more like, what kind of firewalls? I mean, where are you doing malware scanning? Are you using things like WebRoot or OpenDNS? For additional levels of malware defense. I'm just trying to. I think with the interesting conversation around malware, in my view, is that we talk to lots and lots of partners who have literally like every checkbox covered in terms of kind of security defense, but there's still ransomware gets through. And so it's always kind of interesting to hear about kind of the what decisions you guys have made about what kind of good layered security looks like for your clients.
Yeah, so the firewalls that we choose to use are sonic wall appliances. We like the security features that they have. They've got gateway antivirus, intrusion prevention, content filtering, anti-spyware, geo-IP filtering. So a lot of good things that are built in the sonic wall with their comprehensive gateway security suite. So when we talk to a client about security, and we deploy these practices also in our data center, we do like to have protection at all the different layers. At your gateway, your firewall, where traffic is, egressing and ingressing your network. We use the Enable system to manage all of our clients, and they have Bitdefender antivirus that's a part of their package. So we deploy Bitdefender antivirus to all of our managed clients. And with that, we have alerting, reporting, and very good capability to manage those machines and see what the antivirus is actually doing on them, make sure they're up to date, things like that. And then even on the email side of things, we use Barracuda spam appliances, so we're doing spam and antivirus scanning on your mail traffic as well. So, but as you said, even when you have these different layers in place, it really still boils down to how well are the users educated. Something that we've started just within the past 2 months is we have a whole new security awareness program that we're getting ready to launch to our clients. And the company that is called Know Before. And They have what we think is a really great system of training for the end users. They have a lot of good information that you can distribute to them. They have just a nice way that the end users can go in and do the training. You can get reporting on it and whether or not they pass, things like that. And then they also have basically a simulated phishing engine where you can set up and send messages to them that have phishing links to see if your end users are actually clicking on links in emails that they shouldn't, or if they're not, and you get reports back on each person. So we've figured out over the years that we can throw hardware and services at a client as much as we want, but it doesn't really matter what's in place on the network if somebody's still going to click, hey, you need to open this invoice in an email.
Right. Here's your FedEx delivery confirmation with a executable attached to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And,
so know before. Yeah.
Yeah. Go
The
ahead.
company just a question came in, right? Yeah. Glory wants to know what's the name of that company. It's Know Before. So KNOW number 4. Know Before. Right? I think I have that correct.
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that kind of going back to the last question on your slide, what is our strategy? Really going forward is looking at security awareness and trying to educate users on how to protect themselves and what not to do on their computers, and then having all of the other things wrapped around it as far as network security. Then you also have to have your backups because inevitably somebody's still going to click that link and get crypto or Zepto or something on their machine. So Anchor and eFolder backup, backup really can be considered part of your security now if you really think about it. So.
Absolutely. So a couple questions have just come in here, Marty. Let's tackle these. So David wants to know, in order to roll back to the point just prior to the start of a malware encryption, you have to know exactly when the encryption attack began, correct? How do you determine when that is?
So one really nice feature of Anchor is its activity log. Each file share, and even down to the folder levels within those file shares, has an activity log that tracks every operation on a file, when a file is created, when a file is deleted, when it's renamed. Any operation that happens on a file is tracked in the activity log, and it shows what user did the operation and what machine they were logged into that did the operation. So it made, in times past with ransomware when we had customers that weren't using Anchor, you get a call that says, hey, we just got all these encryption messages on our computer, what's going on? And sometimes it wasn't always easy to track down, was it really their computer or was it a different one? It was really hard to find what machine actually caused it. So with the activity log in Anchor, we can see exactly what time files started being renamed. We can see what user it was and what device they were on. So it made tracking it down, pulling that machine off the network to clean it way easier than other scenarios that we've been in.
Okay, slightly related but kind of different question. Jason just asked, is there any reporting with the Anchor backup that alerts you that a backup has failed or not synced in so many hours or days?
There is some reporting built in that we don't leverage it probably as much as we should, because we do have a resource that checks our backups on a regular basis each week. So we still kind of rely on the old let's put eyes on it mentality, but we do have reports that we can run out of Anchor that will show all of the machines that are being backed up. It'll show the last time that it contacted the server and whether or not the agent is fully synced, it's in the middle of syncing, or it's in a failed status. And that report is generated automatically and emailed to our support team. So we can go look at it and just kind of get a quick glance of and get a feel for if there's issues going on or if everything's good. And we also tend to do a little bit of a manual check on a weekly basis as well.
And then are you using a PSA tool, and are you leveraging the integration capabilities there?
We do use Autotask, but we actually have not integrated it at this point.
Okay. All right. So looks like we've got a couple more kind of technical questions. Let me throw these at you, Marty. So Jody asks, when you do the rollback, assuming the ransomware and encryption was able to work in the background for a week or two before the client realized or called to alert the MSP, is there any data recovery possible between the date of the realization and the rollback, or does it just restore the data prior to the infection beginning?
My understanding when you do the rollbacks, and what I believe has been our experience, is that it takes the share back to the point in time that you roll it back. And I guess he's referring to new data that might have been created in between.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my experience with ransomware attacks is the encryption process happens fairly quickly. There's not, it's usually you go from a state of everything's fine to holy cow, I can't access any of my files and I'm being presented with this, you know, ransom request, right? And so it's not really, there's not really a kind of an in-between state.
I can't really think of a scenario where we've had any major amount of time pass before a client is calling us. So that may be why can't think of exactly what that behavior would be off the top of my head. Because like you say, you get encrypted and your phones are lighting up saying, I can't work, I can't get to my files, and we're getting the business and fixing it. So.
Okay. Well, why don't we try to tackle one more here? So Stephen wants to know, he says, we have our AD-based file structures shared to our users by AD user ID based on group assignments of drive letters and read-write controls. How would we work with Anchor with this?
So right now, Anchor integrates with Active Directory, and you can pull your accounts into Anchor for authentication, but access control is handled by the team shares, so you can assign user-level access to the root of the team share, but folders underneath that, it's basically your parent permissions apply to everything beneath that. My understanding is Anchor is working on integrating Active Directory file permissions into the team shares at a much tighter level to where you can have Active Directory-like permissions all the way through your file system, your folder structure, but that's not here yet today.
Well stated, Marty. Very good. That's absolutely correct. So, with that, let me just quick housekeeping reminder. We recorded today's session and we'll be posting it to eFolder's YouTube channel. We'll also be sending around the WMV file and the slides so that you could share this with a colleague if that's what you'd like to do, or if maybe you missed the beginning of the discussion and you want to zoom back to the front. That's okay as well. So that's just a housekeeping item. But with that, I mean, we kind of exhausted all of our questions, and we're getting close to the top of the hour here. So Marty, thank you very much for joining us and sharing all these great insights today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Glad I could share our experience and kind of promote Anchor, because we're big fans of it, and we're going to keep selling it as much as we can.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thanks a lot for everybody for tuning in for some education today to learn how another eFolder partner, is using some of the eFolder solutions to build their business and to serve their clients. And with that, this is Ted Hulsy signing off from another eFolder Partner Chat. Thanks a lot for joining us. Take care, everybody.